Okay, we are live. Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you. Glad to have you on YouTube, IG, and Facebook this morning. I hope most of y'all got the message, and I hope
Are you ready?
that you are ready. I am ready. This is Coach Smith, and I appreciate you guys joining the show this morning. We won't be long. I just want to take some time out and just continue to be consistent and getting some great information out there for you young athletes out there. There's a lot going on in the recruiting world. There's a lot going on in sports today, from the transgender concerns with the female matters that are going on with the NCAA. I saw something about that today about some the female student athletes, NCAA student athletes are suing the NCAA. So we got to keep our ears open and our eyes aware on all the things that are going on that are for the good of sport and fair competition. So there are some concerns there. So we have that going on. We have NIL things going on with Coach Saban um, talking about NIL. Some topics there. There are things going on in free agency with NFL. We got Major League spring training getting ready to get off to a great start. We got the NHL playoffs and things happening, and the NCAA hockey playoffs that are happening. We got track and field happening in college. There's a host of great sporting events going on. We got the NBA winding down their season, and people are jockeying for playoff position to have a good seated spot. And then, of course, we got the NCAA men's and women's basketball March Madness happening, right? And everybody's getting ready to do their brackets after we see who is chosen to go to the NCAA tournament for March Madness for college basketball for our men's and women's sports. So there's a lot of excitement going on. I'm excited to be alive and well during this time to help as many young middle and high school young girls and young boys fulfill their dream of potentially playing college sports. And so this is what this podcast is all about: educating, informing, helping. Be sure that you get your recruiting, you aim it to where it should be going, you hit it straight, okay? And that you get yourself some multiple opportunities to get your education paid for. That's where the main focus needs to be that I see in the environment today in college sports. And of course, we know football and basketball always leads it. Um, and so, but there other great sports with baseball is going on right now, of course, and softball is happening. And so there's a lot of exciting things going on in the sports world today. So let's enjoy it. Let's be sure we appreciate it and that we um, be very gracious in our comments and our thoughts and all those things, but also be 100. Be honest, be real about how we can keep the game, and enjoy it like we do. And so I thank you guys and I appreciate you subscribing on my YouTube channel on Love the Game 24_7, as well as on my IG, Instagram. Be sure you follow. Be sure you give me a lot of views out there on YouTube. Share this information because I know there's a lot of people. Trust me. I'm going to share a quick story about why I love the game 24/7. Is out here and trying to do things. My wife, before heading out of town this weekend to go see the grandbabies in Texas, just happened to decide she want to be sure she, of course, um, get her hair done. You know how you ladies are, got to get the hair done, the nails, and all that stuff, and that's great. Um, I'm not mad at at you about that. So, um, my wife works hard, and she deserves to be pampered like many of you ladies out there. You work hard. You're grinding, and you deserve to um, do some nice things for yourselves. But as I was saying, the reason why I know Love the Game 24/7 is important, and this happens more than you know. My wife, um, hairdresser, the lady that does her hair, has a son that goes. I'm not going to name the school here in North Carolina, but he's in a local high school here. The young man looks to be a very good athlete from looking at his huddle. Tight end, 6'2", about 225, 230. Good looking young man from the video on his huddle that I viewed that his mom sent to me. And but her concern is that her son has never been to a camp, a college football camp, and he's a junior. He's a junior this year, and your junior year is really one of the most important years. Okay, they're all important, but your junior year is a rising junior going into your senior year is really where you want to get your recruiting kicked off. And it should start. That means it should start at the end of your 10th grade years. You go into like we do in Florida. We go into spring football. Okay, after your sophomore year, you move up. If you weren't already on varsity, I know I played JV my 9th and 10th grade year because it was just we had ballers. I moved up my sophomore year at the end of our JV season to varsity near the end of the varsity season and got to play a little bit my 10th grade year. But mainly I started my junior and senior year. That's the goal. And be sure you get when you go up to varsity that you start, no matter what sport. You want to make sure you start by your junior and senior year on your varsity. If you're that really that good, if you feel like you're a scholarship type athlete, young lady or young man, and if you're blessed because you're very talented and you're on varsity, because I've had some kids that play varsity in 9th and 10th grade. Um, they may not play as much, but because of their measurables, they get to play. But as my wife was talking to her hairdresser, her son had not been given any instruction from his high school coach or coaches to have gone to any camps or anything while he was in middle school or high school, in the early part of high school. To me, you're doing a disservice as a coach. Now, I'm going to share some things this morning because ultimately it's on you, parents. Okay, we can't put all the blame on the coaches, but coaches, if you're coaching, if you're in the business of trying to help develop young people and you know you have some good athletes, some young ladies, and some young men, you should also be held accountable as well to be sure you inform parents and your athletes about the recruiting process. But remember, I said on many of my podcasts, some coaches don't know what they don't know. Okay, and a lot depends on their own personal experience as well, or how much they love the game and how much they love trying to build up young people. And there are some coaches I know that they are. But sometimes coaches can be stubborn. We all can be stubborn as coaches sometimes and think we know it all, but there are some coaches out there who do listen to their assistant coaches or those who have been there who may have been who made it farther than they have, okay, and know a little more because of their personal experience. Okay. I don't care how much you know X's and O's and can draw up plays and all those other things. To me, if you can't teach a kid how to develop at their position, okay, if you don't whether you played that position or not, if you don't go do your homework as a coach, if you don't go any coaching clinics, okay, and when you go to the coaching clinics, there need to be somebody there telling the coaches and encouraging the coaches how to go about um their business, right? We hear that term, he about his business, she's about her business, okay. But when you go to these coaching clinics, you need to be developing yourself just as much as you telling your athletes to develop themselves. So you go to coaching clinics and you should be developing yourself how to better serve my athletes, right? Not just coaching them up on their position, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's hockey, whether it's baseball or softball or volleyball, about their specific position and how good you need to, know some information. That's great as coaches that you do that. You learn about drills and different things and how you can develop them. But there's some things off the field that you got to also help develop. And I know coaches do that. Okay. But when it comes to recruiting, this hairdresser, shouldn't have had to tell my mom her son had never been to a camp. Okay. Never had gotten any information. And I don't know why some coaches feel like, oh, I got your recruiting. I'm taking care of that. Well, if you're taking care of it as a coach, then you need to be giving your parents and athletes some advice about getting to some football camps so they can get exposure and build relationships with college recruiters. with college coaches. It's not just on you, coach, on building a relationship to help your athlete. You say one thing, but then you do another. Okay. So these kids got to have the relationship building skills taught to them, and you as a coach need to do it, and you as a parent need to do that as well. And but these coaches out here know that there's some parents out here that don't know whether they come from single parent homes or two parent homes. Some of these kids' parents didn't play sports. Some of them didn't. There's a lot of parents out here who kids, they didn't play sports as a parent, so they don't know. They may have had a brother or somebody or a sister that possibly did, and some parents may have played. Okay. And there are some guys that I know that because of who they were when they were in high school, their recruiting wasn't the normal having to grind because maybe they were measurables because they were bigger than most kids and they were just faster or just that good and they got attention without having to do much. That's not reality for most athletes. Most athletes are going to have to do some work. They're going to have to put some work in off the field as well, off the court as well, off the ice as well. You got to go to camps. You got to teach um, parents, coaches, and coaches. If you don't know, find out through Love the Game 24/7 Sports. That's the example I'm trying to give you because here my wife telling me, calling me while she's sitting in the chair that this mom, her hairdresser, has a son that's an athlete, that's a football player, and plays basketball and some other things as well, but has not been to any camp, and he loves football. And I'm telling, when I looked at his video, and his team went to the playoffs this year. They went pretty far this year in North Carolina playoffs. And the young man is 6'2", 230. He To me, he looks like he could potentially be a Division One, definitely a Division Two or FCS ball player as a tight end at 6'2", 225, 230 as a junior in high school. The kid showed that he could catch the ball with his hands, not with his body. He gets off the releases. He blocks pretty good from some of the little bit that I got to see. And nobody has told this young man or this mom to get her son to camp. And that bothers me. That's why I do what I'm doing. That's why I say get with the 10-week digital course. You know, I'm, this week was the last week to get in on this initial digital course. I'll be starting another one soon. Okay, I'm going to do some sample things as well with some parents that I'm planning on doing as well, as I release some other things. And so this is why the Love the Game 24/7 podcast is important. This is why the digital course is important, not just for parents, but I obviously I need some coaches as well. And some coaches got to, not be so prideful as to thinking that they're the only ones that know things. And then you're not putting your young ladies or your young men, you know, in college or guiding them the right way to start building a relationship with college recruiters and coaches and gaining exposure. Okay. And so that's important for coaches to do that and understand, because I understood when I coached in my over 10 years of coaching high school sports, I understood that there were some parents that didn't know. And I made a point to talk to my athletes and to talk to some of the parents as well, trying to educate them. And then parents, you got to listen. When you do have those coaches who take a liking and really um, uh, talk to you or try to help you with your young lady and your young man athlete in the recruiting process, or get on you about, hey, I want to help you with the discipline of your young lady athlete or your young boy athlete to be sure that they don't mess up their opportunity because they got a great opportunity to get their education paid for, because that's the ultimate focus. Everybody's talking about NIL and all those things are great, okay, and I'm all for it. And I know there's some kids out here who think they deserve NIL, and you haven't proven anything yet. Even at the high school level, you haven't really proven much. Okay. And so there's still room to grow and develop. Okay. My son's playing pro football. He still know there's some things that he can get better at. All right. To give himself an opportunity to make a bigger bag, to secure generational wealth for his family. You can never think that that you totally arrived and that you know everything about your position in your sport. You don't. There's always things that you can do better. Okay. And some of you young ladies and young men out here got to understand everybody's not going to get an NIL opportunity right out the gate. Okay. That's why I said we got to take aim. We got to hit it straight. You got to get some information, and I hope you can tell this is really, touches me. It really, gets my juices going when I hear stuff like what my wife told me about the hairdresser son not having any information about going to camps, and he should have been at a camp 2 years ago, right? Now, I know some coaches probably would be drooling at this young man at 6'2", 225, 30 pounds, playing tight end. And he might have to play another position too, but like I said, he looked good to me. He caught the ball with his hands. That's what I look for. Look for how he releases off the line, how well he blocks. What does his footwork look like? Okay, those things are important. How does it look like he has some pretty good speed? It doesn't always go down on the first tackle. Okay. And so those things are important when you, depending on what position you're playing, especially when you're in an offensive position like tight end or running back or wide receiver. Okay. Fullback for those who still do have a fullback in their offense, and same thing for any sport. Okay. You have to get to camps. You have to get exposure. You have to learn how to build real relationships. I don't want to, not through technology, through physically going and meeting someone face to face. Okay. That's what it's all about. That's how you build relationships. It can't be viral. Okay. There's got to be some genuine, right, connection, you know. And so those things are important for parents. I got to listen to one of my another young man that has a really good um podcast, BYGP, Before You Go Pro. He had a great interview the other night that I watched on Thursday night. And it just um highlighted, listening to this interview, things that I've been saying all along. And he had special guest Tom Luganbill. Some of you may not know. I'm very familiar. I'm old school. I know, remember his father being a coach in the college and pro ranks. And Tom Luganbill is he's the ESPN, okay, um, analyst for high school sports, and mainly football. He does some basketball too. And Tom Luganbill, who was on his show interviewing, um, shared, like I said, he's the top analyst for ESPN on high school and college sports, and he deals with all the recruiting on what's going on with high school students. It has a show that comes on, and he was a guest that he had. Um, my buddy had on his show BYGP, Before You Go Pro. Check him out as well. He's a good one to follow as well. He does some good things, just like you see me doing. Um, and so he had Tom Luganbill on there, and I got to watch it. And he gave the example of how, um, you know, I gave a question. I gave a question about what he thinks about high school coaches not um, helping their high school athlete through the recruiting process. What was his feelings, or what was his thoughts about that? And he had shared that he believes, just like I do, that the coaches do have a responsibility, of course, because you do. You have a responsibility, coaches. However, onus has to be more on the parents, just like I'm doing with this podcast, trying to help educate the young athlete, middle school and high school age, and parents. Parents, you cannot leave everything to the coaches. And um, Tom Luganbill co-signed on some things that I've been saying on the podcast. This is why you got to tune in. This is why you got to listen, because a lot of athletes are missing out because you're uninformed. And he's sitting here on the show doing an interview saying that, right? And pretty much saying to these kids how, even talking about the NIL issue with Nick Saban, but we'll get on that. But the main thing, like as I posed that question on what are your thoughts on the high school coaches not assisting the athlete and the parents during the recruiting process? Yes, you have a responsibility. He agreed. He co-signed exactly what I've been saying on several of my podcasts that I've been showing, that the coaches, got to be held responsible. And if you're at a school where a coach is not doing that, or you don't see kids going to college, you need to run from that school, run from that program, and get yourself somewhere where they're putting kids in school, like we did at Clearwater Central Catholic (CCC) back in St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Florida. We put kids in school at every level, that they were getting some exposure and getting attention. So wherever our athletes were getting attention, we guided them and told them what they needed to do. And wherever they got most of their attention, that's where we as coaches honed in to educate them what they need to do, make sure their parents knew. That's what it's all about. It's about trying to help you get your education paid for. It's not about NIL. It's about getting your education first and foremost. We have to always keep it about that. Okay. And I'm a huge advocate for NIL. And as Tom Luganbill shared on my buddy's show that he had earlier this week about the importance of parents making sure that you're involved. Okay. So for you single moms, if you don't have somebody helping you out, you got Love the Game 24/7 right here. I have the 10-week digital course model that I've developed to help make sure you aim and hit it straight, hit that recruiting straight right out of the gate. We don't have any more time to be wasting and having our kids lose and miss out on opportunities of getting themselves a scholarship to pay for their education. Okay, that was my 529 educational plan. Investing into my kids however I needed to be sure that I help them develop their skill, also help them mature mentally, okay, so they can make good decisions that's going to help them start out better than that me and their mom did. Okay, so whether you're together with the mother or the father of your children, get it together, parents. Get it together because it's about the kids. It's not about you. Okay, it's about the kids and making sure that we put them in a position to do better than what we did. That's what it's about. And if you have a young, very skilled athlete, young lady, a young boy in your home, let's make it about them and stop making it about you. Okay. I did my best to not make it about my kids. I want to be sure I made it about them and that I set them up to wherever their skill sets were, whatever gifts and talents God blessed them with. I want to be sure that as a dad, they can never say, Dad didn't help us out. Dad didn't guide us the right way. I didn't ever want my kids to say that when they got older. And my kids, I don't, not that I was perfect. I'm not going to tell you that I was perfect. But when it came down to recognizing what skill that they had and investing into my kids to be sure they started out better than I did, they will tell you that right now if you sat down with them. That no, my mom and dad, no, they guided us right. They invested in us. We have no excuse. They will tell you that 100. And that's what it's about. And that's why I've shared that when I had the coach that I had in high school who definitely was lazy, who definitely didn't invest in his athletes on his football team. He didn't take ownership and I didn't leave it to him. I learned that at a young age and I had to because I lost my father and I didn't want to put that pressure on my mom. Okay. And so I had to take ownership personally as a young person. And that was because what was God put in me and what was put in me through my parents, even in my father put in us before we lost him to his battle to cancer. Because of those things that he put in me to never let another man tell me I can't do something. You know, never let somebody else stop or mess up my dream or goal of where I want to be. And so I had to deal with a grown man coach who was lazy and wasn't doing anything as a coach, helping us out at our high school, and here I am trying to help my teammates learn some stuff as well because it wasn't just about me because I wasn't, being greedy trying to just help myself out. I was trying to help my teammates out. So anything that I learned, I made sure I passed it on to my teammates to try to help them. And a lot of them did go off to school. I won't say just it was all about me because it wasn't, because I knew, but I did my part in trying to make sure that I was a good teammate, a good friend, and making sure I shared things with my teammates, and parents of my friends. Make sure that we all went off to school, man, and a lot of us we got the blessing and opportunity to do that. But I didn't leave it to my coach to handle everything because I couldn't in my situation. And some of you all in that same situation, and we have to understand too, there's some coaches out there who don't do as good of a job as they should. But also there are some great coaches out there doing a great job and they ought to be commended for it. But there are some coaches who don't need to be coaches. I'm just going to be 100 with you. Okay. And here's my wife on Thursday getting her hair done and her hairdresser is telling her how she's never heard the coach or her son had never been to a camp. And here he is just finishing up his junior year. Now it's not too late, but we got to get some work. We got to get some work done. I got to be sure I get with this mom, make sure that her son takes the opportunity to hit as many football camps as he can possibly get to. Okay. And thank God that he was part of a team that went deep into the playoffs this year. Okay. And so this is the stuff that we have to stop, and um and whether you get a full scholarship or a partial scholarship, it doesn't matter. Anything that you can get because of your talent that you have and your grades, that's what it's about. And see, that's where I come in with NIL, because there are some things that Tom Luganbill shared additionally when we got on the topic about NIL situations of, some student athletes are not being realistic. Okay, and if you don't get realistic, you're going to end up not getting some scholarships because people are not going to want to deal with you. Some colleges are not going to want to deal with you because they see that you're more concerned about the money side, and you need to have some concern about it, but it can't dominate. Okay, it has to stay balanced. People, parents. Okay, so um, so let's understand. Don't miss an opportunity in delaying because you're sitting here saying, well, they're not giving me as much NIL money over here and blah, blah, blah. You better hurry up and nail it down for those of you who do have some NIL opportunities. Okay. And I know there's some kids out there that are not all looking at the highest bidder, and just because you look at the highest bidder, you may end up somewhere you wish you wouldn't have been, that you wouldn't have decided to go to. So if you base it off NIL, how much NIL money that you're getting, that's not a good way to determine what scholarship you should sign because of who's giving you the most money, because it may not be the place that you should have gone. And I'm gonna tell you like this, because this is I'm gonna give you another example, and this is old school stuff that's always going on, right? You got some coaches that will offer some kids a scholarship because they know they're good, but they're loaded. Okay, and I'm gonna give you an example. I know my guy, Derek Tatum, gave this example, and and he just confirmed a conversation that me and my buddy um just had recently, because there are some coaches that in college, um that will load up, okay, on signing athletes because they don't want to have to play against that guy or that young lady. Okay, it may happen more in the men's college sports than women, but now the college women's sports is getting to where it is. Okay, it's probably going to start happening a little more there as well. But I know in the men's college sports, coaches will offer scholarships. Okay, and not saying they don't want the young man or young lady to help out their program. Of course they do. Okay, because once they get you in and you get to practicing and all that stuff, and they seeing where guys' talent and skill level is and knowledge of the game is, and how this person, because of where they are in their development of the game, may end up playing more than another person. Okay, and you sign thinking, man, I thought I was going to play more, blah blah blah. Okay, but some college coaches will sign kids, will sign an athlete, especially in football and basketball, so they don't have to play against them. And I'm gonna give you an example. Alvin Kamara was at Alabama, and they were loaded at running back. And Coach Saban told Alvin Kamara to go play DB because they were loaded, running back. And he brought him in, and his heart was set on playing running back. But you be rest assured, Nick Saban signed him because he didn't want to have to deal with Alvin Kamara on the sideline on Saturdays and have to deal with that young man playing running back. So to try to keep him there, he told him, "Hey, why don't you just go play some DB?" Well, he stuck to his guns just like I would have. No, I came here to play running back because I know I'm better at a running back. I know I could probably be good as a DB, but that's not what I want to do. I turned down going to University of Central Florida the year before they went Division 1, as they were transitioning, because they wanted me as a DB. I went to a D2 school because I was a running back. Alvin Kamara transferred and went to Tennessee. For those of you all who know football, right? Alvin Kamara, the running back with the New Orleans Saints. He left Alabama, transferred to University of Tennessee, and balled out and caused problems for Alabama and other teams in the SEC. But what else? You know what else happened? He was a top draft pick as a running back, and we see what he's doing in the NFL. And so that's what I'm saying, guys. Sometimes you may choose to go somewhere and you shouldn't have chosen to go there. And if you're doing that because of NIL, that's not a good formula. Okay, to see who's giving me the most money. That's not a real good formula to decide on where I'm going to go to school and who's giving me the most money. Because you might end up like what Alvin Kamara did. Thank God, we are able to transfer, and coaches can't hold that and use that, against you like they used to do when I was coming up. Because sometimes coaches wouldn't always release you to transfer like they have to today. Okay, and I think they've done a NCAA has done a better job of with the transfer portal, but there's some things that need to be fixed there too as well, and I'll share about that on what Tom Luganville shared as well. That I kind of had some thoughts too. But like I said, some coaches sometimes they'll sign some kids, man, try to sign as many of them as they can, especially some of the top players, and woo them to their school because I don't want to have to deal with that guy on Saturday. I don't want to have to play against them. So I need him over here on my side, whether he sits for a year or two. I'd rather have him over here sitting for a year or two and developing him than um than having to play against him. So sometimes student athletes will fall into that if they're not careful. So you can't decide on going to a school because they gave me more NIL money. Okay, that's not a good formula to use to determine what school you should go to. And just like I shared, Alvin Kamara was at Alabama. He transferred to University of Tennessee and balled out and became a top draft pick. Now everybody's not going to be a top draft pick. The point is you want to go somewhere where you're going to be able to play and develop. And Alvin Kamara realized when he got to Alabama, it was probably somewhere he shouldn't have chosen to go. And when he did get opportunities to play when he was in Alabama, he did pretty good, but he wasn't on the field as much as he felt he should have been. And so he had to make a business decision. Okay. And so he knew he probably had some potential to play at the next level, but he wasn't getting his look. Right. And so he decided, hey, I'm transferring from Alabama. Some of you all might think, man, he's leaving Alabama. Yeah, he left Alabama. It was a good decision. It was a wise decision for him to transfer to Tennessee. Then he went over to Tennessee and became their starting running back, and he was one of the top running backs in the SEC and got himself a drafted opportunity. So be careful, young person, about how you go about your business and parents, okay, about trying to uh, determine where your young person should go to school. I see my wife just joined me on Instagram. I was just sharing her story about the hairdresser and why I do love the game 24/7 podcast and the digital courses to try to help, like she shared about her hairdresser son, um, not having any information about going to football camps to help him gain exposure, to help his recruiting process. So that's why I said when you come on this podcast, we're here to help you aim and hit it straight so you can get your recruiting off to the a great start that it should be getting off to. Parents, you got to recognize you got to do more. You can't leave it all to the coaches and trust everything because did a podcast not too long ago about do college recruiters lie? Yes, they do lie. Okay, they're human. All right, just like anybody else. Any of us could potentially lie. These guys, this is their livelihood. Doesn't make it right. There's some very good coaches out there who are um, honest and straightforward with some athletes about playing time and all those different things. Um, but be rest assured, none of that stuff uh, may hold true when you get on that campus. When they get you on that campus, one thing that you recruits gonna have to understand: they love you while they're recruiting you, and you're gonna think that you got a crazy woman or a crazy person, man, as a coach. You're like, man, this is a totally different person that recruited me. You have to remember that coach's job is on the line. Her job is on the line. His job is on the line. He's trying to make sure his family eats, right? He's trying to make sure all that back and forth to different schools that he's been trying to get an opportunity to make a better income and take care of his family. There's going to be some recruiters who may potentially lie because you're a very good recruit and it's going to help them keep their job by bringing in good recruits, good athletes, whether you are male or female. That coach, she wants to keep her job. Okay. They're going to tell you everything that you want to hear when they're recruiting you. And then when they get you on campus, you're going to think, man, this person is totally different. It's not necessarily that they're totally different. It's about them, handling their business and you handling your business. You can't be fooled thinking that it's all lovey dovey. Okay. Um, these coaches during that period when they're recruiting you, you're going to think this coach is the best thing that you've ever seen. But then when it's time to get into practicing and getting ready for the season, you might think this is a totally different person. Okay. And so we got to do better as parents. You got to do better in getting information and getting informed. You can't leave it to coaches and thinking they're going to do everything for you in high school. You have to be sure you build a good relationship, parents, with the coach. Okay. And vice versa. Coaches got to do a better job in building relationships with parents. And we have people out here who don't know how to build relationships. You don't want to tear down bridges. Okay. And it's the same thing as you're getting recruited, young person. You don't want to tear down any bridges with college coaches out there because you never know where you might see that coach again somewhere else. Okay. And especially if you're someone who plays at a high level and may have an opportunity to go to the next level in the pro ranks. Because a lot of these coaches go from between college and pros. So you don't want to tear down any bridges. You don't want to get so caught up about the NIL stuff. It's about you on how you can get your education taken care of and take that pressure off your parents, take that pressure off yourselves. Okay. Believe in yourself, bet on yourself because you know you have a mindset to work hard, to get things done, and to stay focused. Okay. Because some of these recruiters might feel like you're so caught up or more concerned about NIL money and you're not focused on developing yourself that's going to help keep you or help you gain some NIL opportunities. And so, as Tom Luganbill shared, if you're not a top 500 recruit, your chances of getting some NIL money is slim to none until you prove yourself, until you get on that college campus and start playing some games. Okay, so you're going to have to show um, that you're worth your salt, right? So just be sure that you continue to keep your focus on the main thing. Okay. And that main thing is how can I supplement my education? How can I take that financial burden off my parents and use this skill set that I was blessed to have? And parents, you got to do whatever you can to invest. Okay. And as I shared, like my wife, hairdresser, I got to be sure I follow up with her and make sure that she gets this right information to um, help her understand how this recruiting process works. Because to me, a coach um, ought to be ashamed of themselves when they don't inform their athletes. And the mom also shared with my wife that her son has very good grades. Okay. Um, Now I don't know if that's true or not, but she shared about what his GPA is, and seems that's true. And he's taking some appropriate courses that are gonna translate to him getting into college, being accepted and getting into college. That's great. Then he should already have his SAT and ACT things done. See, I teach people about having that stuff done by your junior year. Okay, get that stuff done by your junior year if you can. If you can get it done between in your sophomore and junior year, get those SAT and ACT things out of the way. Relieve yourselves of some of those things so that you can perform well in your sport, young lady, young man. Okay, parents, you got to get on. You got to get on this. Okay, you got to make sure you invest in your athlete. Okay, in your young person. And and like I said, some of these coaches out here aren't really good at knowing how to build relationships either. Okay, we're talking about people. Some people we don't know what experiences they've had in their lives. Okay, there are some coaches out here who, male or female, adult coaches that have been through some things. Okay, and if they're not invested in themselves on learning how to build relationships as they go to these coaching clinics, because some of these clinics that they have for the sports, for all these different sports, it needs to be developing coaches on how to build relationships with parents and with their athletes. So we got to have those types of things too at these clinics. It can't just be about the sport or about how to help develop this kid in their position. Okay, it can't always be just about that. About how they should be lifting weights and their nutrition. It has to also be on relationship building. How can I, as a coach, learn because of some of my own personal struggles on how I was raised? Okay, because we're dealing with people, and this is serious stuff. Okay. And like I said, I had a high school coach who was never invested in his athletes. And that should not be happening today, but it is. Okay. And so that's why I'm so passionate about Love the Game 24/7, because I love the game 24/7. I want to help young people, you know, fulfill their dream or get into the next level if they have that opportunity so they can supplement their education and take that pressure off their parents. Because I tell you right now, my mom, like I said, my mom had no pressure, you know, and I had to do this as a young person on my own after losing my father to cancer. But because of those things that they taught me, I knew how to take care of business, right? And as I said earlier, I didn't ever want my kids to say to us, to my wife and I, that we didn't invest in them to help them to be successful in life. Okay. I never wanted to have my kids come back and say, well, I wish dad would have done this or blah, blah, blah. Right. To help them, get off to a great start. My kids would tell you right now, hey, my mom and dad, they laid it out for us. I had a plan before I had kids. Okay. And I laid that plan out to my wife. I told her, look, she's on here. I told her, look, if I got some kids and they're athletic, they're playing some sport. It don't have to be football, but it's going to be something because that's going to pay their education. I had that plan already set in my mind because of my own personal experience. Okay. And I don't know why my high school coach was was the type of person he was. 'Cause it apparently has to do something with his upbringing as to why he didn't invest in us like he should have. But parents, you can't leave it. Like I said earlier, you better run as fast as you can away from a school that's not putting kids in college in your athlete sport, in your young person sport. Go find you at high school. Okay. Find you that middle school that's invested in your kids, that have coaches that are truly invested in developing and building young people in their education. And if they're an athlete in their sport, there's a means, to help you fund, you know, paying for your young person's education for those who have athletic ability. And if you have music, okay, dance, cheerleading, they have all scholarships and all kinds of things. Do your research. Get with Love the Game 24/7 podcast so you can learn some things, right? Um, but it's just time out that parents, you gotta spend some money sometimes. I spent money for my son for his quarterback training because I didn't know how to do it. I had to find somebody. Okay, I could only take my son to a certain point, right? But when I recognize, hey, I better find somebody because I can't take this uh, young man any further. But I knew where to go. I knew I had Coach Davis at Cloverwater Central Catholic. Okay. And he guided me and said, yeah, Jeff, I don't train as much anymore because, hey, I'm getting older. I just want to coach. I don't want to do any more quarterback training like that unless it's just my kids that I'm coaching that plays for me. Um, and, I had plans. I started coaching with him there. And so he's like, hey, go to John Kaleo, who played quarterback at Montgomery Community College and University of Maryland, and had trained many uh, top quarterbacks. And so, hey, I spent money to have Coach Kaleo. He was a blessing. Coach Davis was a blessing in sharing that information. When he gave me that information, when he shared that information, I'm like, look, I got to figure it out. I got to get the money. Okay. But I didn't waste time. When somebody like him gave me that information, I went full board. I was all in. Okay, this is what I got to do. Okay, this is what coach said I need to do. Okay, out of respect, if I get his advice, I need to use his advice, and I did, and it paid off. Okay, to help my son develop to be the quarterback that got him attention and got him exposure. And I took him to camps. I already knew about the camp stuff. I didn't need coaching about that because I knew what I missed out on from my own high school experience. Okay, so I already knew that information. But when it came down to now, my son was a running back. I knew what to do. Or if he played wide receiver, I already know what to do. Or a DB. Okay, I knew those things. Okay, I knew about how to work out because I was blessed to get myself an opportunity, to go to college and pro. So I learned some things by listening, watching, and following people from my coaches. My strength and conditioning coaches learned things. Okay. Going to coaching clinics, I learned some things. Right. So I knew that stuff. But when it came down to him being a quarterback, okay, I like, look, I gotta find somebody. So when the coach gave me that advice, right, and that's what you have to learn to do. When people give you advice, follow it, right? And it may have to you may have to come out your pocket. To me, that shouldn't even be a question. That if I gotta pay a little something to help my student athlete, my young athlete get to where they need to be, and it's gonna save me hundreds of thousands of dollars in their college education, and I don't have to borrow loan money, interest on top of interest. Okay. And as I said, I'm a financial aid administrator over 20 something years, and I see the stress that's on parents borrowing so much money. Now, for the some, they have to do it. But I would tell but I've met many kids who've come across me that stopped playing their sport, pursuing their sport. They had some opportunities from what they shared that they potentially had some scholarship opportunities, but they love this school. I'm like, you can love this school all you want, but if it's not helping me pay for that bill, we're going somewhere that's going to help me pay that bill because you got good academics and get merit scholarships um, and if you have a talent in the sport, and somebody's offering you a scholarship, that's where we're headed. That's what you have to tell your kids. We got to focus on that. And so I just want to take time out and just talk to you parents about that. Tom Luganbill shared that he played, he shared um, information about he wasn't highly recruited coming out of high school, so he had very high academics. Here, his father was a college coach and a pro coach, and he wasn't even recruited as heavy. But he said he realized he had some work in developing that he needed to get done if he was going to play major college football. So he went the junior college route. But he started his freshman and sophomore year at his junior college. He played alone when Derek Brooks, well-known linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Florida State. He was alone that time with a little bit. He's a little bit young. Tom Luganbill is a little bit younger than I am, and so um, he went to junior college, started as a quarterback, and then got into Georgia Tech his junior and senior year, and started at Georgia Tech as a quarterback. Um, and so he talks about how you know kids are going to have to be realistic, and like he had to do, he had to be realistic. It's like, look, here my dad has coached major college football and pro football, and it just didn't happen for him because his dad was very well known as a college and pro coach. They weren't knocking down his door to give him scholarships. He knew he had some more developing to do. He lived around football. He was in it, right? With his dad being a coach and at major programs, okay? And he didn't even get heavily recruited. And he had inside information with his dad. He was around some top players growing up in college and pros because the access he had through his father being a coach. But like he shared, his door wasn't getting knocked down at quarterback, right? So he had to humble himself and say, "Well, I guess I just," even though he had high academics and got opportunities, he felt like you know, he bet on himself that he wanted to go to top level Division 1. So he decided, hey, I'm not going to just settle for some of these offers. I'm going to just go ahead and go to junior college, develop myself there, okay, and get the coaching that I need and get the film work playing junior college football. And then he got a scholarship to Georgia Tech, kept his high GPA, right? And so he, got the blessing of proving himself, right? He had to prove himself, just like we're telling you. Some of you kids gonna have to prove yourself before you get these opportunities. And another thing, he shared that Tom Luganbill shared that's going on that the NCAA does need to work on with this NIL stuff. Because he shared about it. He was at the South Dakota State, I think national championship game, and he got to sit down with the head coach, because he's a NCAA analyst, like I said, for ESPN, and they got to meet with the coach before the game from South Dakota State, And the South Dakota State coach was complaining to him about how with this NIL stuff, he already had coaches from other from major colleges trying to woo their kids to leave South Dakota State, right? And to come to their school and offering NIL money. And so some of these FCS schools, they don't have the money like the major colleges do. And even some of the major colleges, all of them can't compete, right? It's all about them raising money called a collective, okay? And it has even the playing field in some respects, but not totally, right? For some of those mid-major Division 1 or lower, major Division 1 schools that don't have as much money as some other schools. But they do need to do change some rules by, they shouldn't let college coaches already talk to kids during the transfer portal situation being opened up during that end of the college season. There's some discrepancy there on how the NCAA needs to change that, because there were some college coaches, because the portal was open during the time that bowl games were going on. So there were some coaches who missed going to bowl games after working hard and being successful and getting to a bowl game. They couldn't even go and enjoy the bowl game and all the festivities for them and their families because they had to stay back. Some coaches had to stay back because the transfer portal was open. So there's need to be some rule updates and changes to opening the transfer portal later after the bowl game, so coaches can go, earn and enjoy going to a bowl game and not having to stay back and not being with the team at a bowl game and enjoying all the festivities from their hard work. They got to put attention to the transfer portal. And so that's not right. Those are some things that NCAA needs to change. And as it pertains to the NIL situation, there needs to be some rule changes because coaches are trying to woo kids near the end of the season to woo kids to come to their school. So there needs to be some rules on when a coach can talk to an athlete. It should be at the end of the season or maybe during the summer or something, right? Or, maybe summer's too late, but at least after the end of the season. Okay. So there are some things that need to be corrected with NIL. NIL is not going away. All right. So that's not the issue. But the time that they give that open period needs to change. But the South Dakota State coach was just irritated because some of his guys were already being called, and that's kind of like, it used to be a rule where as long as a kid was under scholarship, another coach, um, you couldn't reach out to a kid that was already under scholarship, right? That was breaking a rule, and there were consequences for that. So there are no consequences as the rules open up for NIL, and they need to get back to some of those rules, okay? On when a kid can, um, when the door or that window can open up for that. So there's some things that need to be worked out, no doubt. But NIL is not going anywhere. The thing is that some of you kids got to be realistic, okay, about NIL opportunities. Okay, some of you all need to prove yourselves first, and you need to understand that. You know, you need to be about your business. Okay, and some of you all, if you're not careful, you're going to burn bridges, and you don't want to do that, or you're going to miss out on scholarship opportunities because you're dragging it out. And then these coaches are going to get tired of it, and you're going to get missed. And they'll take a kid who's not heavily recruited and not getting any NIL talk. That scholarship is going to go to them because they're going to be happy just to get a scholarship. Or that coach called them back saying, "Hey, we got an opportunity because, you know, we're moving on from this young lady or this young man." So be very careful. Get yourselves educated. You know, get on the podcast on Saturday mornings here with Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7, and on Wednesday nights to gain yourself some knowledge. But most importantly, get with the 10-week digital course opportunity when the next time the other one comes up. Okay, so we can dive deeper and get more detailed information. I've worked hard to put this together, and um, and anything worth having, you don't want anything that's free. You want something that, hey, somebody, you want to work hard for it, just like you want some NIL opportunities. And these coaches don't want to just give NIL opportunities, and they don't see anybody that loves the game and wants to be developed and wants to um, earn that NIL and not just have something given to them. They're going to move on and go to somebody else who's willing to work hard, okay, and willing to prove themselves first. And that shouldn't be any question about that. So be sure, young person, that you, in all you're getting, get some understanding, get some wisdom. All right. And so I appreciate you guys joining the podcast this morning. I hope that you got some benefit from some of the information that I shared and some of the examples that I gave. Be sure to subscribe. Go out there and look at some of my uh, past videos to get yourself up to date and caught up on some of the topics that I have discussed. Okay, so subscribe. My YouTube channel, Love the Game 24 score 7. I share. You can get to all my social media platforms on Linktree at Love the Game 24/7. And be sure you follow me on IG, right? And as well as you parents on Facebook. But I'm also on TikTok. Um, I got things out there. Go out there and watch some of the video shorts that I have on YouTube and TikTok. Get yourselves informed. Get connected. Um, you can email Coach Smith if you want more information about the 10-week digital course at love the 24/7 game at gmail.com. That's love the 24/7 game at gmail.com. You can email Coach Smith and be sure that you get some great information so that you can aim straight, right? You can aim and hit it straight and get your recruiting off to a great start to where it should be, to help you gain some exposure, to help you get some multiple offers and give you some choices, right? Some options. That's what it's all about. Okay. And so I thank you for being a part of the show today. Share this with your friends, other teammates, other parents of athletes. Okay. Middle school and high school age. We're trying to get you to get your education paid for, right? So that's what it's all about, more than anything. Okay, more than just your sport. Get that education. Get that get that opportunity to go to college and make some connections and build relationships with people. So down the road, when all this is done, when your college time is over, whether you go to the pros or not, you got connections, you have relationships that's going to help you be successful in life. All right. Well, until next time, y'all have a blessed weekend. All right. Take care of yourselves. I'm getting ready to go out to this golf course so I can hit me some balls. Um, get out to the driving range and work on my game. So when it's time to get on that golf course and play some games this summer, this spring, I'll be ready. So make sure you be ready and join the Love the Game 24/7 podcast and be sure you connect with Coach Smith and I'll get you some more information about the 10-week digital course. Blessings.